Hello, this is Roger, Low Vision Product Manager here at HumanWare. And in this short video, I would like to share with you some best practices for managing Connect devices. Please be aware that what I'm sharing today applies to both the Connect 12 purchased through HumanWare or any one of our distributors worldwide, or the Mac Connect purchased through APH. Either way, what I'm about to share applies to both products. Now, Connect devices can be set up in one of two ways. And first, I'm going to share with you the benefits of setting up for an individual user where the tablet won't be given to another student or shared. So first of all, the benefits of an individual user setup is that that single user has full administrative control over the tablet, meaning they can access Android, make any changes to Android settings, download anything that they would like to the tablet, use any apps that they would like, and so forth. So they have full control. This is great if it is a student who is trusted, a student who is never going to have to share the tablet with another, or even an individual user who has purchased a Connect 12 or a Mac Connect for their own personal use. There's no need to use any other setup. The individual setup will work for them. Second benefit is that the tablet is fully customized to the individual who has set up the tablet, meaning every change that they make to any setting or any app that they load onto the device is totally their own, and they don't have to worry about anybody else changing their customizations, adding or deleting any of their apps or things of that nature. And lastly, if you are in fact in an institutional environment, say a school, there's less management work in the long term. So again, this type of setup is really good if you're in a situation where you know that the tablet is never going to be handed off, but absolutely is the right way to go if you know that there is only going to be one user for the long term. So setting up for individual use. It's best for tablets that are not going to be shared among users and those that will not require a reset for new users at the end of a school semester or a school year. So again, that would be sharing the tablet among users. To affect this individual use, you simply follow the default tablet setup process, and that is activating the tablet in Android with an associated Google account. Now, you'll notice the asterisk here. This is recommended that you associate a Google account. It's not required, but if you want to do anything on the Android side and download apps and send emails and so forth, a Google account is highly recommended. But you'll notice the asterisk again, and at the bottom, the note, always keep record of the Google account credentials. So the username and password. And this is where issues can arise, especially when a tablet is set up for individual use in an institutional environment. So oftentimes, the Google account that's associated in these situations may be a student, and they use the student's Google account information. At the end of the year, the student leaves, moves to another school district, even to another state, and leaves the device behind. If you don't have those credentials, which are required when you perform a factory reset of the tablet, this will in fact require that the tablet be returned to HumanWare for a factory reset process. It is not something that can be done in-house if you do not have those Google account credentials. So again, very important to keep those safe and secure, but definitely have them saved somewhere. And then lastly, you install and configure your Prodigy. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at how this setup looks on a tablet for an individual. Okay, so now we're going to quickly demonstrate an individual setup of a tablet, Connect tablet. And in this case, this is a Mac Connect tablet that would be purchased through APH. But here we are at the launch screen of a brand new tablet where we have to go through the activation process. Now at the bottom are some vision settings. I've already adjusted them, but you'll want to check that out if you need to adjust for larger font sizes and imagery. But I'm going to tap in the center of the screen here on the Start button, and move forward here. And the first thing that I'm going to need to do is connect to my Wi-Fi. So we will take care of that right now. And we've put in our password. We'll tap connect. That will be taken care of. So we'll get the IP address. We will scroll forward here. And now we're just going to walk through the entirety of the setup process for this tablet. This could take a few moments. There's an option to copy apps and data from one Google account to another. I'm going to choose Don't Copy in the lower left corner here. Now again, I'm setting this tablet up, in this case a Mat Connect, for individual use. So you'll be able to choose an adult or a teen or a child, your choice. I'm going to use an adult or a teen, but again, remember, I'm setting it up for an individual user today. So we'll tap there. And here's the important step. Again, we're setting this up for an individual use. So I'm going to put in an individual email address here. And this account and tablet will be fully associated with my individual user Gmail account. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter my credentials here. And you can see rjshumanware@gmail.com. I've entered my password, so we'll go ahead and hit forward here. And this account is going to be associated with my device now. I have two-factor authentication set up, so I need to take care of that. So at this point, I just follow all the other steps in the activation process. And if you're curious to see how an activation goes in complete detail, go ahead and visit our website and view the other videos that go through the complete activation process. Okay, as you can see here, completed successfully the activation of this Mat Connect tablet, and I have Prodigy set as my home application here. I'm going to use my 5-finger press on the screen to go into Android and quickly just show you by going into the settings down here. I dragged up from the bottom of my screen, and we'll go into our Android settings, tap that icon, and we will scroll down through the list here to passwords and accounts. Open that up and I'll scroll down. And here you can see accounts for Roger, rjshumanware@gmail.com. This is the primary account for this tablet, and it is set up for individual use. So again, remember, if you were to want to reset this for someone else to use it, you would perform a factory reset, and you will need to have the credentials for this account in order to successfully do so. So keep that in mind. And I'll tap here in the center bottom, the round circle, and go back to my home application of Prodigy. So now we'll continue on to look at setting up for multiple users or institutional use. Okay, now that we've seen how to set up a tablet for an individual user and those benefits, let's take a look at the benefits of a multi-user setup. And this is most frequently used in an institutional environment where a tablet may be shared amongst different users, where there is an administrator who controls the tablet, and maybe they want to be able to quickly transition from one student to another at the end of a school year. This type of setup is much better for those types of situations. So the first benefit of this setup is that the institution, the person who sets up the tablet initially, will retain full administrative control over the tablet. Meaning, again, they can add and remove users. They have their own user profile on the tablet. But again, they have that complete control over everything that happens on the tablet. This setup does allow the tablet to be shared among multiple users. So in the case where maybe your Connect device is staying in a single classroom and students or users are matriculating through that particular device, they can quickly switch amongst those users, have their own credentials, and log in and use it. It keeps their settings separate from everyone else that's using the tablet. The third benefit is it's much easier to add or remove users over time. So again, when you see the demonstration of this in a few moments, you will see that you can quickly, if you are the administrator, and that is by default, I'm talking about the full administrator, you have the ability to just add or remove a user at your discretion very easily. And lastly, again, if you have an individual user set up and you want to set up the tablet for use by another individual, you would then have to perform a factory reset to wipe everything that the first user did for the second user. In this type of setup, you don't have to do those factory resets. You simply remove a user, add a user, and go on about your business. So setting up for a multiple user account, again, primarily in institutional environments. This is best used for tablets that will be shared among multiple users. So again, handed off from student to student, it's especially in an environment where students may be moving through a lab environment and they have their own profile to log in. It's also best for when you want an administrator to have complete control over that tablet. Again, the ability to add, remove users at their discretion, and employ other administrative controls. So this type of setup is perfect for that. And lastly, if you know that the tablet is going to be changing users over time, say at the end of a semester or the end of a school year, it still is easier to have it set up in this way, in that administrator can log in, they can look at the list of users, eliminate any users that have left the school, maybe they've graduated and gone on to other things, and they can quickly add another new user without the need of those factory resets. So there's 3 simple steps to this. First, the administrator activates the tablet with an associated Google account, just as if they were an individual user. So again, they might have their own credentials that they use as an administrator, but they sort of follow the same process as an individual user. And then the steps will differentiate to set up the tablet for these multiple users. Again, note that asterisk there. Always keep record of the Google account credentials, especially at this administrator level, just like you would with an individual account setup. It's not so important with the sub-users or the multiple users that will be created, but it's absolutely imperative to have them for the administrator that activates this tablet. Again, if they are forgotten, it will require that shipment back to HumanWare for us to perform the reset of the tablet. So once the tablet's activated as an administrator, you simply go to Android, into Settings, System, and you find multiple users and you can add user accounts. And as you add these user accounts, you can associate Google accounts to each of the user or users if you desire. Again, we recommend that you go ahead and do this. This allows the user to send Gmail, access a Google Drive, and do those sorts of things that are associated with Google. And you should remember these as well, or at least the user should remember them. You will not be required to know them in order to add or remove users as the administrator, but it is important for them to know them because they will need them to log in and log out of their profile on a tablet. So with that having been shared, let's take a look at what it looks like on an actual Connect device. Okay, so here we are now going to demonstrate the setup for multiple users or using a Connect 12 or a Mac Connect in an institutional environment. So I'm using a Mac Connect here again, and also I'll point out that I have already set some vision settings so things will appear larger on the screen. So it's going to look very similar at the outset here. So we'll tap Start, and I'll need to go ahead and connect to my network again. Again, remember this is a tablet that's fresh out of the box, or it's been factory reset so that I can set it up for multiple users. So I'll go ahead and enter my password now. So we're connecting up to our wireless, and it's going to take a couple of moments to get the tablet ready, just like it did before. So we allow that process to happen. So the setup is continuing here. I've already gone past copying from an old tablet. I chose to skip that. But again, we're setting up for institutional use. So the idea is that an administrator is really going to have control of this tablet. So we're going to choose an adult or a teen again. Most administrators probably are adults, and certainly since it's going to be multiple users when we're all done, this is an adult. So here we're asked for our Google credentials. Again, I think it's very best practice to go ahead and insert those at this point. So I'll put those in. So I've typed them in with my virtual keyboard, and you can see my username is hwconnect.school. So humanwareconnect.school. Think about it as an administrator account or a school account that's going to run this thing. I'll tap the forward button here, and then I'm going to be asked to put in the password for this administrative account. My password entered, so I'll hit the forward button again here. And now we just continue on with our setup just like we have previously. I'll go through the verification process here. Go ahead and accept that this is in fact me logging in, and we will get things moving forward. So let's go ahead and choose that, and I'll get this done and we'll continue along here. Okay, so we went through a number of steps there. We bypassed them. Again, there's recordings that you can see that go through each of the steps of the setup. But again, the administrative setup is very similar to an individual setup to this point. You just follow all the standard steps. You have your own instance of a user on the tablet. Here I'm going to use my 5-finger press again to exit out into the Android environment. And I'm going to go into my Android settings, which I can access. I see the settings gear wheel here as an icon on the bottom of the screen. If it wasn't there, I could drag up from the bottom to access it. We'll tap that to enter into my settings. And you'll recall when we set up an individual, we could go into passwords and accounts and tap on that. And we could see that there was an account for Roger on this device, and that's the main account on the device. But the way to set up for multiple users, we'll back out of this with this arrow in the upper left, is to come back out into your settings and scroll down and go into System. And then we'll go in System and scroll to the bottom of the list, and there's a multiple users option there that I'm going to tap on. It's second from the bottom. And here you can see users and profiles. So I am in here as the admin account on this device right now. So what I want to do is add a user profile. So I'll tap on that, and I have an option to add a user or a restricted profile. And the restricted profile would be accessing content from my account. That's not what I would prefer. I'm going to have this user have their own instance of an account. So I'll tap on add a new user. And it says they need to be here. In the case of an institutional setup, if it's an older user, perhaps you want them there. But in the case of a student in a K-12 environment or even in a college environment, perhaps you'll go ahead and do this for them. So I'll tap OK there. And then I'll tap here and give this user a name. We'll call this one student 1. Okay. And we will have that new user created. And now we have the option to either delete it, which we just created, or switch to student 1. And by switching to student 1 here, this is where I will complete the setup. So it says make sure they're available. In this case, I'm the administrator. I'm setting it up for them. So I'll tap on setup for that user. And we will switch to student 1 here. And now we see that they have an instance of Android here to unlock to access all features. And here you can see we're setting up a new user on this tablet. So here we're going to go through and get the tablet ready again. So this should look familiar to an individual setup. So we'll allow the tablet to do its thing, and we'll fill in the blanks as we go along. So as before, it took a few moments. We've cut that time out there, but you can choose an adult or a teen or a child. We'll go with an adult or a teen as we normally do in these setups. And we'll just continue on through. So basically all we're doing is going through another activation process to create this user profile. So here we'll associate a student account of Gmail to this user. Then we have a very generic student name, hwconnect.student. You'll recall that the other one was school for the administrative account. So we'll go forward there. We'll have to connect this student up by supplying the password. And again, we have two-factor authentication set up on this account. So we'll have that code sent over and we'll get this one set up as well. We'll verify that account there. We'll accept Google's terms. So I'm going through these. I didn't go through these previously, but they're the same for an individual account as well as these additional user accounts. So the process is very much the same. So we set a PIN code there. It flashed very quickly for the student, and the setup continues on. We're going to skip setting up Hey Google, and we will skip the assistant unlocking the device. Anything else? I'm going to say no for right now. That's in the lower left there. And setup should be wrapping up here shortly. So again, Prodigy is already installed on this, so I'm going to set that as the home app for the student account, and we'll make that always. Choose some settings for it. I typically allow it while using it and allow it access to what it needs to have. And it will install. We continue to allow settings for Prodigy. It's going to tell us that we need to have a voice for this student account. So we'll choose Heather in this case, US English, and we'll send that off to get it installed. So this student user will have their own instance of Prodigy where anything that they change in terms of settings and so forth will be retained there. So we'll get this installed and updated. Okay, so our license check and so forth have completed. We are in the student account now. It's finished the setup of Prodigy and so forth. So I'm going to use my 5-finger gesture again on the screen here to exit to Prodigy. There's my settings wheel on the far left of the icons at the bottom. If it wasn't there again, I could swipe up and see all of the available items. So let's go into settings here just to see how it looks a little bit different now in this setup. So I'm scrolling down here. Passwords and accounts, let's look in there. And you'll see that there was an account created for student 1 here, but they don't see Roger or anything that has to do with that administrative account that was created for the school. So let's back up out of there again in the upper left and scroll down and look at system under multiple users. And we'll tap on multiple users here. And you can see that right now, you, student 1, that's who's logged in right now. And there's Roger, the admin down there. So the student can't get in there. If they tap on that and they try to switch to Roger, they're going to be presented with the need to enter my PIN code, because I'll swipe up here to enter in, and I happen to know what it is there, so I can get in. But absent that, the student would not be able to access this account. And so with my password, I'm able to get into my account here. So again, I'm in as the administrator right now. I have my own instance of Prodigy. I use my 5-finger press again on the screen, come out into settings here. And I just want to show very quickly that I could, in fact, go into my settings, create another student if I wanted to, by scrolling all the way to the bottom, and go into my system and look at my multiple users again. And you can see you, the admin's in here, but there's a student in there. So again, that student could do nothing with my Roger account without my PIN code. They will need their PIN code to log in and choose their user profile when they log in. But as an admin, this is where it becomes powerful. At the end of a school year or semester, whenever, if I need to remove the student, I can tap onto it right there and tap delete user, and it goes away. But I don't have to factory reset and start all over from scratch with the tablet. And also, I'm not caught up in a situation where, hey, I don't know that student's credentials or whatever. Because I am the admin, I have the ability to just go in and say, delete the user and all of their data. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. And you'll see that they are now, in fact, gone and removed. And I can go and add another user profile to add a new student for the next year. And I've avoided a lot of extra work and having to perform a factory reset and so forth. Thank you for viewing this video. As always, please be in touch with us with any ideas for how we can improve the Connect 12, the Mac Connect, or the Prodigy software that we run on each of these devices. We're always listening, and it's the only way we can get better in serving all of the students and users of our Connect devices. Thank you.